you like for a long time. So, hey, I was supposed to do this kind of like white supremacist debate. It's not David. David's not a white supremacist.
No.
So yeah, that's the title. That was the title I had on here. I don't know if I can change.
Oh shoot! I don't really think I'm the.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Debating a white supremacist. Maybe I can go back in and change that later. No, because me and David were talking to this guy on Twitter, and it's just like he was just kind of like, oh, you're gonna like, why don't you talk like? And David's like, well, come on, like, why don't you come on to Skype with me and talk? And and then so the guy, I commented on something, so the guy starts trying to rope me into it, and then I'm like, dude, you don't want to rope me into it.
I think so you commented when I retweeted him, because what happened was I'm talking with this guy. It has to do with for those of you just listening, it has to do with the Ahmaud Arbery shooting where the guy was out jogging. Yes. And, some people are trying to argue that he was a burglar or whatever. I still think right now most evidence looks like they'd seen a black guy on the camera burglarizing at some point. So they're like, oh, clearly that's him, because he walked into an empty construction site, which maybe he was looking for tools, or maybe he was curious to see how it was going together because he's an electrician, or maybe he wants to get into the trade. So, I mean, he didn't do anything. He literally walked in for like 2 seconds, looked around, nobody was there, and he left. And the white supremacists are out white knighting for his shooters really hard right now. So I've been getting into arguments with them, mostly on, for some reason, Matt Walsh tweets, because he's been on the right side of the issue. Yeah. And this guy, I made some comment, people are saying things like, oh, what a cuck. You think there's no such thing as race. You think, because basically I believe that like race is just skin color. There's no real meaningful difference between people of any race. There's a reason that we can all breed with each other. There's a reason that you'll find highly intelligent people and very stupid people of any race and ethnicity. Like they're not meaningful categories. You can find huge variations within races. Like the idea that all black people are the same is just stupid. And so some guy was like telling me I was a cuck for that. And then this guy came in. I said, yeah, you're right. I don't believe that race is a meaningful, like genetic distinction. Then this guy said, oh, I'd love to have that debate with you. And I was like, okay, sure, I'll have it. Why don't you come on? Why don't we schedule time? You can come on my show and we can set it up. And then he started, his excuse then was, oh, I don't have a mic or headphones. And so I was like, well, it's okay. You don't really need them. Most modern software like Skype or this or whatever will do a pretty good job making that work without that. You won't get echo or anything. Your audio quality will be listenable off of a phone. So then we've been debating with him for the last hour, arguing with him, and now he's a no-show, I guess.
He's like, open up your DMs and we'll set up a debate. I'm like, dude, he's right here. Come join us.
Dude, this guy's clearly just a teenage troll.
Yeah, it's got to be like this. I'm like, dude, are you 10? Like, what is it? Like,
well, what I've realized is that a lot of these guys are really young. Like, I literally think they're teenagers. I think most of them are. You know who Nick Fuentes is?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Exactly. Yeah. So these are all like groypers. Like, if you start digging, almost everyone inevitably they're like retweeting Nick Fuentes stuff or Nick Fuentes adjacent bullshit.
Well, okay, this kid, like at one point, and I'm gonna just start saying kid, because
until he proves otherwise.
At one point he just was like, yeah, I'm a Nazi, because like one of the guys that was like tweeting at him, like one of my followers, which is like was kind of just like, okay, Nazi, and he's like, yeah, I'm a Nazi, like just kind of owned that.
Oh yeah, like not even.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, come on, dude. Like,
well, it's like yesterday or 2 days ago, I don't know, 2 or 3 days ago, in the last couple of days, when Matt Walsh had first made a pretty good tweet about this, and I got to debating with people on it. One of the first guys that really started arguing with me, his profile picture was like a young, like early 20s, blonde, blue-eyed, black and white picture of like a guy in a suit. Like, it looked very like 1930s, 1940s German. And I was like, I bet if I reverse image search this, I'll see some weird shit. So I reverse image searched his profile picture, and it was even worse than I thought. It turned out the profile picture that he had was a guy named like Joachim Piper, I think, who was an
Okay.
actual, like a literal Nazi. He was an SS war criminal who somehow didn't manage to not get executed. He lived until like the 70s. He died in his 60s, I think. But he was a Nazi war criminal who was like perpetrated some massacre where
Switch
he
something.
executed hundreds of American POWs and then hundreds of civilians and stuff, or he helped perpetrate that. So, like, dude's avatar is literally an SS Nazi war criminal. And then you get some of these other guys who are like in MAGA hats and they're like, oh, why are you calling people Nazis? Are you an SJW? And I'm like, no, it's a literal Nazi. Like, what else do you call a guy whose avatar is an actual fucking Nazi? And that's kind of been all these guys when you dig, all these guys that are arguing with us, you look 2 inches deep in their profile and you start finding like literal white supremacist and Nazi propaganda. So, well, did I lose you? Oh, is it just me now? Hold on.
Back.
Oh, you're back.
I'm back or not? Back? I can't tell back or not. Oh, okay, I am? Okay. I was back at one point, but like everything was so frozen I couldn't tell. I'm like, I don't know what's happening. The internet is like freaking out.
Oh, I can hear you fine.
My computer is like, oh god.
Did he disappear?
Really rough time. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what was going on there. Like, try to click. Yeah, I don't know what was going on with that. Like, holy crap, my computer like really started having a rough time there. I was like, that's not good. I don't know what's happening.
Weird.
Shit. Hold on, guys. I don't know if we're keeping. Alright. It's making a lot of noise. That's what it's doing. Oh, it always sounds like. Alright. That guy just likes doing all kinds of.
Lost him again. Oh shoot, I am live right now. That's hilarious. I wonder if you can just trim this, and this is just me sitting here awkwardly in a room full of firearms. And my wall looks so empty right now. All my 22s are out because I've been out shooting a lot lately. Oh, I guess my 9mm carbine is not in here either at the moment. Oh shoot, even one of my handguns is out. I have like 4 or 5 guns not in here right now. Not to mention all the ones that are always stashed all around my house. Oh, these freaking Nazis. Oh. Literally, none of my 22s are in here. I have 322 rifles and a 22 handgun. They're all not in here right now. I've been out massacring squirrels lately. Ugh. These retards. I like how I'm the only person holding down a channel that is not even mine. This is hilarious. So right now this guy is saying that there's no option for him to join the stream via his phone. So let's see if we can make this work here. I'm going to do it on my phone. Okay. Clicking on the StreamYard URL on my phone. It went straight to here and said you're entering a broadcast studio. Allow mic/cam access. Yes. Allow. Oh, look at that. It's working perfectly. Display name. David's phone. Enter broadcast studio. I need someone in here to add me. I'm not the admin, or I could bring it up. But look at this. Look at that. Look at that. That's. I don't know if you can see it. This is working on my phone. I did not do anything. I did not even install an app. I just downloaded it. Or sorry, I didn't have to download anything. I just clicked on the link and it went straight to it. It's perfect. If there was an admin right now, they could put this stream coming from my phone of me talking directly into this. Unbelievable. So he's full of shit if he says that he can't join. He just doesn't want his face out there. He's a fucking internet Nazi hiding behind an anonymous clown picture. He obviously does not want to be seen because he's worried that it could jeopardize his career or whatever career he has. I think supposedly he said he's a carpenter. Kind of doubting that because honestly, I'm assuming this is like a freaking 19-year-old groiper. Oh. He's coming back. It's not going to be just me anymore.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you fine.
I had to like switch routers and stuff. Like I don't know what was going. I think my other router
Weird.
just fucking went dead or something. It was like I don't know what was going on. I think it just died on me or something. I was having some serious problems. I had like completely entirely switched routers. Like our we have a like an extension for the upstairs and it just dead, like gone. It seemed like I just could not get it to work. So my signal is going to be not as because I'm using like our downstairs router, but it's definitely. I mean, like as soon as I switched, like you were just like all of a sudden it was kind of like I could see you moving.
Weird.
Okay, I see.
Oh, there he is.
I hear.
Hello.
All right.
Hey.
Okay, so we're still like we're 25 minutes in. So for whoever is okay, so I'm gonna say we're 25 minutes in. Who there's probably whoever's been watching. There's probably been a lot of dead air because of all of the problems we've been having.
Yeah, it was just
Like,
me talking to myself and my guns.
Okay, so thank you for that, David. I want to say I appreciate that for keeping some kind of conversation going. I'm sorry for all the technical issues. I was having a problem with my routers, so I was having to switch around a lot of stuff.
Can you cut the beginning off of a video?
You know what? I will definitely try to go through and see if I can edit that. I'm not sure. I know you can with some stuff. If I can with the live stream, I will go through and see if I can cut that off. If I can cut it through to just now, I will.
Yeah.
So I will definitely try to do that. So this is a kind of a very last minute thing. It's where I'm at 5 o'clock in the morning, like 5:15. So this is the Sarcasm and Liberty live stream. So I'm here with David. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm a libertarian activist and filmmaker, big gun rights activist, anti-war activist. If you're familiar with the term ghost gun, I'm the guy that made that famous. That's probably my biggest claim to fame.
All right. And if you're watching this stream, you guys know, I mean, I'm the one that runs our Twitter. You guys know Sarcasm Liberty if you're watching us. Honk, I'm just going to call you that since that's what you made your name. We've been trying to get you on this stream for, it's been a fight for a while. So I don't even know where to begin, to be honest, and how, like, where we're going to make this kind of introduction here. We're not going to gang up on you. Me and David aren't going to make any kind of ganging up on you here. I want to make sure that's known. I feel like that was a concern of yours. But, like, I don't really know where we're going to start here. So I want you to at least introduce yourself and, yeah, give some kind of introduction of who you are and why you're here.
Sure. So David and I started, I guess, debating about, I mean, it kind of started with race realism and it, you know, kind of morphed into other things. So, but I mean, that was the premise of the debate. So, I mean, that's what the debate's about. So we could go ahead and debate about that. I mean, I think David basically believes that all humans are exactly the same. And my argument was that it wasn't true. He never really, you know, told me why he believed that. But yeah, that's the premise right there.
Well, I think a lot of things got kind of lost in the shuffle there with your argument style was a little too loose because it seemed very white supremacy like.
Yeah, but we're not debating white supremacy. We're debating race differences.
Well, that was the problem because where I was seeing a lot of it was very white supremacy like because when you were saying things like people were saying something where you're like, hold
on a second. No.
When I'm literally seeing the words, yes, I'm a Nazi, I'm like, okay.
I mean, yeah, I put that because he called me a Nazi. So
I didn't say that.
Well,
I didn't say that.
Hold on, let's get back to the premise though. And you said that you were going to be kind of a, you were just going to, I guess, be the moderator, if you will.
Okay, but here's the thing. I will say, I specifically don't know.
Hold on.
Okay,
I'm just going to tell you right now, if you're going to inject yourself into this conversation other than just moderating, then I'm just going to end the conversation. So if David and I wanted differences between race, then we can have that. If this is just, you injecting yourself and trying to change the subject of the debate, then it's just going to end. I mean, you can.
Well, first of all, I never agreed to just moderate, but I will say.
Okay, so will you agree to that now? Or
position here?
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, David.
So I'll just start by stating my position. So what I believe, I would consider myself a theologically conservative Orthodox Christian. Small O Orthodox, not like Greek Orthodox Church, just Orthodox,
right.
And I try to adhere to like historical Christian beliefs.
Right.
Because of that, I believe that all humans are created in the image of God. That's what separates us from all other life in the world. That's what.
So can I interrupt you at any point, or do you just want me to kind of let you have this monologue?
Okay, hold on.
Either way, fine.
Let's stop from the beginning, okay? Now, if we're gonna have a start where you want me to moderate, all right, let's let him finish.
Okay. No, I was just asking. I was just kind of clarifying the rules.
No. We'll let him finish, and then I will if you won't let him finish, and then I will let you go. I will not interject with my thoughts. I'm gonna. Okay. I have my position now. We're good.
Okay.
Right. So basically, I believe that people are created in the image of God. That's what gives us our human rights and moral worth, and that's what that's what separates. That's why it's okay to kill an animal, because they're not created in the image of God. But it's wrong to kill a human unjustly. Obviously, self-defense would be a different situation. And I believe that there was a literal historical Adam and Eve. So I believe that God created one man and one woman, and that all humans are ultimately descended from them. That lineage bottlenecked after the flood and narrowed down again to Noah and his sons and their wives. And then all humans, so basically all humans share common ancestry. So what I believe is that there's only one race, human. Race is essentially a meaninless term. It is nebulous. It is very ill-defined. And all of the differences that people can point to that are actually there between the races are purely phenotypic. So they're basically just aesthetic. Like, yes, obviously, people, members of the black race obviously have a lot more melanin in their skin and are darker. Members of the Northern European white race, whatever you want to call it, have a lot less melanin. Obviously, if you want to break it down, races down by skin color, skin color is a thing just as real as hair color is. But what I would posit is that the effect that one's skin color or race or whatever has on their conscience, their values, their morality, and their intelligence is just as much as hair color has on those things. Basically, there's nothing there. And I think that any study you're going to find that would show, oh, well, look, this study found higher IQs in certain races than in others. I think there's a lot of reasons beyond genetics that could be used to explain those differences that they found away.
Is that a good stopping point, David?
Yeah, that's
okay. Honk, is there potentially a different name I can call you by? I just don't feel comfortable calling you Honk the whole time.
No, Honk will work.
Okay, that's fine.
It's on the screen, so
it's fine. Okay, that's what you're okay with me calling you. If you go ahead, rebuttal.
Okay, so your premise basically is that you had Adam and Eve, and that every human descended from Adam and Eve. So from two people, how do you get different skull structures? How do you get different skin colors? I guess that's how we could start this off.
Lots of people have posited different ideas. Basically, the idea that, maybe Adam and Eve had a lot more, genetic potential for diversity. And I don't know exactly how all those differences would have arisen.
Well, I guess, if you're gonna make the argument that everybody is came from Adam and Eve, and I don't necessarily dispute that. I guess my view on maybe how God works in the world is a little bit different than yours. But if you're going to say that, everybody is descended from Adam and Eve, how do you get all these different skin colors? How do you get all these skull structures? I mean, we could measure the different skull shapes between different races. So how do you get that from one Adam, one Eve, without any sort of environmental pressures causing an effect, on their descendants, I guess?
I mean, the Bible also talks about when you look at like the ages that people were living to in, like pre-flood and then like just after the flood, people were living to, hundreds and hundreds of years old. So there was something like, I don't want to say different about people, but there was something, there's something that we lost that we've been progressively losing to some extent since the flood. So, I mean, if you want to call that like microevolution, like we've been, obviously parents can have different looking children, and then those children will have children that look somewhat different than them. So, I mean, you could say all that stacked up and made all these differences. And I'm not going to dispute that there are obviously racial groups where sometimes there are racial groups with significantly larger bodies. There are racial groups with darker skin, all those different things. What I'm saying is that those changes, those clear, measurable, obvious differences, those aren't affecting people's morality. Like if you could somehow average out the morality of all those people, you wouldn't find anything inherently different about them than any other people, if that makes sense.
No, it doesn't really. So do you believe there's any link between, I guess, intelligence and morality? And I'm not saying somebody higher intelligence necessarily has a better morality, but there's, so for example, a dog is going to have a totally different, moral structure than a human, whether they're black, white, or whatever. I mean, just because humans can think a little bit more abstractly. So do you believe, there's a different, do you think intelligence is at all tied in with morality?
No, not really. I think that, what we often see is that people of different intelligence levels maybe have different struggles. People who are of lesser intelligence are probably going to be more prone to violent crime, but people of higher intelligence are going to be more prone to white collar crime. So it kind of is all a wash in the end. Like people of higher intelligence are more likely to be, manipulative.
So if you looked at I don't know, crime rates among, say, higher intelligence people as compared to lower intelligence people, and I understand the concept that maybe, smarter people are more likely to get away with crime. Do you think there would be do you think it would be equitable? For example, if you have somebody that's a CEO at a company, or, somebody that works within that structure, that is able to pilfer people, as opposed to, somebody that's maybe a lower intelligence that might break into the neighbor's house. I mean, do you think there's going to be an equitable level of crime rates between the two?
No, I think that you're generally going to see lower levels of intelligence among people who are like low-level criminals. But it's also important to remember before you say, oh, well, we've seen studies that show that black people who statistically commit so many crimes have lower IQs. It's also important to remember that IQ is not the most objective measure of intelligence. Like we actually can't What's that?
So just again, to clarify kind of the rules of the debate, moderator. So if he's speaking, shall I let him finish his thought, or if he's saying something
it's kind of hard because I can't see you. In my kind of like ideal world, it'd be nice to see like a hands up, just kind of like if you had like a kind of a mind popping question. I guess if you have like it's kind of like I would preferably like to let somebody kind of finish their thought.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Let somebody kind of finish their thought. as much as they kind of can. If somebody's, I would, if like, like try not to go on too long on something.
Right.
If you have like a rebuttal, if somebody does feel, if you do feel like somebody's kind of going on too long, feel free to butt in and flag me, like you need me to kind of like you have a jump in.
Right.
But yeah, David, go ahead with what you
Okay.
did want, because I do feel like you had something you were kind of going on.
Just a comment real quick on like the idea of IQ. I mean, IQ is a decent measure of intelligence, but it's important to remember that you can study for an IQ test. Education can affect your IQ score. It would be great if we could just somehow measure someone's brain and apply assign it a processor speed like you would to the processor of a computer. But we can't do that, and IQ does not actually do that. It doesn't. There's obviously there's some level where intelligence is, at least to some degree, likely even a large degree, determined by your genetics, but that doesn't mean that IQ is a good test of that. So there could be a lot of people who turn out to be criminals who would score low to middling on an IQ test, who, had they been brought up differently in different circumstances and had more access to things like education or whatever, they might have scored significantly higher on an IQ test. They might have had a totally different trajectory in their life. I think it's rather foolish to act like someone's intelligence is just biologically, is completely biologically determined.
Okay. Honk. I think that's a good stopping point. If you want to give a counterpoint.
Okay, so you said that IQ wasn't the most the most objective way to test intelligence. So what would you say the most objective way to test intelligence is?
I don't think there is one. I think that's something that we have to acknowledge when we have this conversation.
So if you're going to test the intelligence in a classroom or how would you check intelligence, I guess? Because obviously there's something called intelligence and it's measurable and there's ways to detect it.
But it's not, one's potential for intelligence isn't really measurable. All we can measure is someone's like realized intelligence. And
okay, so how would you measure their realized intelligence?
Things like IQ tests and I don't want to say standardized tests, because I think we've seen that those are even more bullshit than like IQ tests are. But IQ tests are an okay way to do that, I suppose.
Okay. So you don't believe in any sort of evolution. Okay. Actually, let's go back to the flood. You were talking about there was micro evolutions.
Yeah, I'm saying, like, if you want to call the differences that arose.
Sorry, go ahead.
If you want to call the differences that arose in different people groups,
during the flood.
Well, they had arisen before that also, but then they arose, again after that.
What caused the differences before that, I guess? So you have Adam and Eve, and then you have the flood. What caused the differences between Adam and Eve?
And we don't really. The same thing that would have caused differences since then. I think that
environmental pressures, environmental stresses.
I don't know. I don't know that I really subscribe to that. I don't know how much evidence there really is of, environmental.
So I guess what I'm trying to get at is, what do you subscribe to? I'm trying to kind of pin down, how do you go from Adam and Eve to
I think that
Indians and Europeans and Native Americans and blacks and Asians and everything else. You had brought up the flood, and then so that's why I kind of brought up, that's why I went back to that. But how do you get from point A, Adam, to point?
I know we got your point. It's fine. Let David rebuttal.
I think it's safe to say that generations and generations of people having children, and the small DNA, the different mixes of DNA that happen, each children, even from the same parents, are going to look a little bit different. I think that all those differences eventually stacked up, and you got people who looked significantly different, who had darker skin, who were taller, who were, had different hair colors. And I'm saying if you want to call that microevolution, fine, that's fair.
Well, that's what you called it. I didn't call it that. So do you believe in evolution? Do you believe in microevolution?
Yeah. I mean, basically everyone does. So the difference between micro and macroevolution would be microevolution is the idea that, of course, you can, dogs wolves can eventually be bred into dogs, but they're still ultimately that same species, that same race, if you will. Whereas macroevolution would be the idea that things can change into something.
Well, hold on. My argument was never that Asians or blacks or anybody else wasn't the human species. So I don't know how you got.
No, I know, but I'm just saying why I use that term, because I don't believe that.
But you kind of contradicted yourself right there. So you've said that I mean, you're using dogs as an example. The Great Dane's different from the poodle, but they're still dogs. Right. I never said I never said blacks weren't human. I never said Asians weren't human. I said there was distinct differences between the races. You also said you didn't believe in evolution, and you said you believed in microevolution. When you're making this distinction, you're saying that, well, microevolution is the difference between Saint Bernard and a German Shepherd. I mean, those are pretty obvious distinctions. I mean, and you can measure the intelligence differences between dogs. You can give a dog, different breeds of dogs, a cue, and you can kind of, like this dog may take on average, this dog may take 3 cues to teach it to go fetch the stick. Another dog breed may take 19 cues to teach it to go fetch a stick. Yes, they're still dogs, but I mean, you're saying that the differences between the dog breeds, that's a microevolution, despite the vast differences between dogs. Would you say there's a pretty vast difference between a wiener dog and a Bernard?
Yes, I would. And I think it's important to remember that those differences were not, they were not differences that arose in a vacuum. They were not differences that arose naturally. They arose because of very intentional selective breeding, and also that dogs breed in enormous litters and with short gestation periods, and they hit breeding maturity at like 2 years or something. I mean, point being, one female dog that lives 10 years can birth dozens and dozens of puppies in that time, whereas a human will live up until the last couple centuries, maybe 60 years, and really is only giving birth over the course of 20 years.
If I can, real quick, I want to I'm not much of a dog person. I want to step out of my. If it's okay with you, Honk.
No, it's not okay.
No, it's just a genuine curiosity of mine. Is this okay? Actually
debate.
No. This is an actual question I have. I'm actually asking.
Okay, how about this? How about let me respond to David, and then you can ask your question.
No. I'm asking both of you. Because I'm asking you if you might know too.
Okay, but can I respond to him and then you could ask the question?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, go ahead. Okay. So you said selective breeding has a lot to do with the difference between the dog breeds. You also mentioned how many, liters or whatever it is that dogs can have. First of all, that doesn't have any effect really on evolution. But the selective breeding, that's an environmental pressure. Right, that's an environmental pressure. That's what evolution is. Evolution is an environmental pressure. That applies. I mean, the same thing applies to humans. That depends on where you live, your environment you live in, your social structure that you're involved in, your tribal structure you're involved in. Those are all selective pressures. That's selective breeding. It applies to humans the same way it applies to dogs. So,
right. But my point is that there have been different pressures. The guy who is the strongest was more likely to pass on his genes because the women wanted him when that really mattered.
If it's okay, and this is a genuine, what was genuine curiosity of mine, and I'm this is just something I'm not a super big dog person, but and if I'm wrong, feel free to call me out on it, either of you. But because I think some of the weirder dog breeds weren't they were specifically domesticated, right? like bred to be
I
domesticated?
didn't hear a lot of that for some reason.
Oh,
like
I'm sorry. Weren't some of like kind of like some of like the dog breeds like were bred to be domestic, like some like the kind of like stumpy dogs and like were bred to be domesticated, right? Like we had some of those. I'm not trying to like challenge anything either,
No,
right?
fine,
Like I'm just
fine.
saying like we have bred like dogs to be like domesticated and stuff, and then there were dogs to be like we've bred dogs to be like weird.
But regardless, that's still an.
Oh no! I'm not challenging anything. I'm not
I'm just trying to
challenging
answer your
anything.
question. Let me answer that, because that's a thought or that is a question. I mean, that was a question.
I'm like, but we had bred dogs to be like kind of shit dogs, right? Like to be really like shitty wild dogs, right? Yeah. No, yeah.
Okay, so let me answer it. So that's still an environmental pressure, whether humans impose that environmental.
No, go for it.
Okay. So that's still an environmental pressure, whether humans impose that environmental pressure or it's a natural environmental.
I think humans definitely imposed it, but go ahead.
Right, but we can still impose environmental pressures upon each other. I mean, a tribal structure, that's an environmental pressure. Any sort of social structure, that's an environmental pressure. These are environmental pressures.
So, if you don't mind, Honk, if you don't mind, Honk, real quick, with what I just said, with what I had just said, and then with what you had just said, David, would you have anything to add to that? Human environmental pressures.
Yeah, so I want to respond to something that Honk said, where he said it wasn't really. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said it basically isn't really relevant that dogs have shorter lifespans and breed faster.
Oh, hold on, not that though. That's a different thing though.
But I have a reason, and it kind of has to do with the environmental pressures.
I never said anything about dog short.
Okay, then that's going to be a different. Yeah, that'll be a different thing then. Okay, like what I'm saying though, specifically, if it's okay with you guys both, real quick, specifically because one of the things I was talking about, I mentioned about like the kind of how humans have bred dogs, and then Honk brought up that how did you phrase it, Honk? Human environmental pressure, or something like that.
You have environmental pressures in general. Humans can impose environmental pressure.
Thank you.
Nature can, it's an environmental pressure. Basically,
an environmental pressure.
An environmental.
Okay.
Social structures are in an environmental pressure.
Okay.
So, by the way, let me stop you right here. So it says debating a white supremacist. I've never said I'm a white supremacist.
That's specifically what you were saying in the thing. I was asked, I asked you several times if you are a white supremacist. You never once denied that. So that's what I went with. I can't change it, and I tried to change it, and it wouldn't let me.
Okay.
He can
Whatever.
change the
I don't care.
I will definitely change it.
Okay.
Afterwards, I cannot change it.
Okay, so what are you going to change it to afterwards?
Afterwards, I'm going to change it to, I don't know, what should I change
race
it to?
Race debate? I mean, there's a million
race
things.
Debate. That sounds good.
I was probably going to, I was going to change it to like a race, like a theological race debate. I was probably going to change it to theological race debate because it kind of, there's a lot of like...
No, that's perfect.
Because I'm actually really interested in this. It's really, I'm very entertained by this. I'll be honest. I'm loving this 100%. It's amazing. I'm actually really happy that you joined, Honk, because... So
where is this going to be posted? Is this on YouTube, or where is this?
Yeah, this is going to be on the Sarcasm and Liberty YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's going live onto YouTube right now, but
it's live on YouTube right now. There's a couple of people watching at this very moment.
Try to trim.
So what's the channel on that it's live on right now?
Sarcasm and it's a YouTube Sarcasm Limited. It's like
Sarcasm and Liberty.
Yeah, Sarcasm. What's our YouTube channel specifically?
If you search Sarcasm and Liberty, it's the first thing.
If you just search Sarcasm and Liberty, it's gonna pop up. It's on YouTube. I'm not sure if our YouTube is like Sarcasm and Liberty or Sarcasm Liberty. But you'll find it. I'm gonna try.
So when you said a couple people were watching, you weren't joking. There's literally 2.
No, I specifically said a couple. There was 3 earlier. There was a 4, I think, at 1 point.
Earlier. You lost a third of your audience.
Yeah. So
holy shit.
It'll hop up earlier.
I might throw it on my channel too if he's okay with it.
Oh, totally, David. Yeah, go for it. What I'll do too is I'm gonna try to, and like afterwards I'm gonna try to see if I can go through and like chop off like the first bit where it was just kind of like dead air. But no, like, you know, and I will say, yeah, I'm definitely gonna change the title of it. Because, you know, like, yeah, sure, like there was definitely some heat, because I think, you know, like I honestly hopped in because there was some crazy shit going on Twitter, but
if I may, I actually have a point I'd like to make real quick.
Go for it. Let's go for it.
So I brought up the issue of how dogs have short lifespans, short gestational periods, and large litters, because sometimes, you know, you'll get people saying things like, oh, well, you know, we see how many, we see a lot of changes in black people. And sometimes they're not even saying they're bad things, just saying, oh, black people are, do so well in professional sports because of the slave era. They were bred to be like super workers in the field. I've never
heard that. I don't.
Oh, I mean, it's a common argument that people will bring up when they talk about like eugenics type stuff. I find it to be kind of a silly argument, because the entire period of the American slave trade was, I mean, maybe like 300-400 years. It was not that long. I don't think that it would have been nearly enough time to have any sort of meaningful change develop in people. I mean, we're talking, in the grand scheme of things, a handful of generations where maybe plantation owners could exert some kind of like forced breeding on their slaves. And a lot of times then there would have been some plantation owners that would just let families form naturally and exist, in which case, you know, there's obviously some social pressures, but they're not just, oh, this is a big slave and this is a big slave, let's breed them and try to make an even bigger slave. I don't think enough of that could have happened. Whereas with dogs, in the same time period, you get dozens, if not hundreds, of more opportunities for change, because a dog can have 12 puppies. 2 years later, half of those puppies are now old enough to have their own puppies. I mean, it's like exponential, the number. So you can introduce changes to animals far, 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 far quicker than you can to humans.
Right.
And so that's why I don't really think that it's that. I don't really think bringing up the idea, oh, well, look, you can bring all these changes into animals, actually has that much bearing on humans, because humans take so much longer to reach sexual maturity. They take so much longer to gestate. They have so many fewer children. You know, I mean, beyond twins, which happen naturally, maybe 1% of pregnancies or something, maybe less. I think nowadays twins happen about 1 in 80 pregnancies, but a lot of those happen because of fertility treatments. I mean, beyond that, humans have one baby, basically. And so there's just not a whole lot of opportunity for these changes to mount the way that they do in animals, and specifically in animals like cows, chickens, dogs, animals that we have specifically bred to be to exhibit certain traits, to produce lots of meat, those sorts of things. So I don't really find the idea that we've been able to introduce massive changes in different animal species to also say that there will also be massive differences in humans from different areas. And furthermore, I'll let you talk in a minute, but I have one more point I want to make in that regard. When you lump together an entire race, when you say, oh, black people from the entire continent of Africa, people who have dark skin, it becomes really ridiculous, because when you look at smaller groups within those groups, you find lots of variations. There will be some tribes in Africa that are very tall. There will be some that exhibit a certain birth defect, because obviously limited gene pools can display very similar characteristics. I don't really think that we find those characteristics on a race-wide level. I don't think that aggression is a race-wide characteristic of black people.
Okay. Are you done?
Yeah. Sorry. I'm done. You can go on.
Okay. So you just said a second ago that you were talking about changes in human. You said in humans, you basically said, it can't compare with dogs. They have puppies every 2 years or whatever. You said, so the changes would be mitigated, it would be smaller. So do you believe in race differences or do you not? Because you're kind of minimizing, you're saying, well, I kind of believe in it, but I minimize it. That's a totally different discussion, but that also basically validates my premise coming into this. You're basically validating what I said. There's differences between races. So is there evolution? Is there changes, through the generations, or is there not? Is there environmental pressures that affect humans, or is there not?
What I'm saying is that there's a kernel of truth to what you're saying, in that there are differences, and we do know that differences can stack up. But I think that it is fallacious to think that those differences would apply to an entire continent-wide demographic that is, now a global demographic, but at one point Black people were largely relegated to Africa, or what you would now call the Black race. But there would be very isolated pockets there. And so the smaller group you get, like obviously if you look at a family, a direct family descended from a common set of grandparents, and then you look at the grandkids and the great grandkids, you're going to find a lot more similarities there than you will if you look at everyone who shares their skin color. And what I'm saying is that there are so many people, and it takes so long for these differences to really stack up and create meaningful change, that when
you do acknowledge that there is differences and that they do stack up, and over time they can cause meaningful change. That was the premise of the conversation. That was what we initially disagreed on.
And what I'm saying is that in theory, yes. In practice, I don't think that there are any meaningful changes beyond like the phenotypic ones, like size and hair texture, skin color, those sorts of things. I don't think there are meaningful race-wide differences in morality and intelligence.
But you do believe there's differences. That was our disagreement initially, and we can debate the
phenotypic,
the quantity. Yeah. Wait. So you believe it's strictly just kind of superficial. Okay, so you don't believe there's any sort of cognitive differences?
No, I don't, not meaningful ones, no.
Okay, so you believe that, so you do believe in evolution because it affects you physically, right? Evolution does affect you physically. You're talking the sun, people that are in the hotter areas, they're going to be darker, you're going to have different melanin levels.
I don't really know if that's why that happened or not. I just believe that
So you do believe that evolution affects you physically, right? Externally.
Yeah.
Your height, sorry, go ahead and answer.
Yes, I believe that we've seen pockets of humanity where people, because for whatever reason, a bunch of tall people conquered an area at one point and bred with tall women, and then their children were tall, and we find places where you see people who are different in that sense. Yes, those are the phenotypic differences I've said I believe in since the beginning of this conversation on Twitter.
So you believe that evolution affects people, humans, specifically just kind of externally, but it doesn't have any effect whatsoever on the brain or the cognitive function or anything like that?
Well, and that's where I said I think there's a kernel of truth. I think that it could.
You do believe that there is.
Hold on.
Go ahead. I'm just getting mixed answers.
Yeah, it's fine. Just let him.
What I've said repeatedly, I've been pretty consistent on this, is that I believe that it can. You'll see sometimes cognitive defects that will run in families. And so, sure, within that lineage, maybe you see a higher prevalence of Down syndrome or something. Or maybe, but we all the time see parents of average intelligence have extremely intelligent children. Or, so it's not guaranteed. And I just think that when you look at a giant demographic, a demographic that really that doesn't even necessarily share any significant amount of DNA, they just have similar melanin contents. I don't think there are meaningful differences in intelligence between any group defined that broadly.
Okay, Honk.
Okay, so if you took a population, let's say the population of Nigeria, which is it's a distinct population. They do have very specific external similarities. They have darker skin, they have similar skull structures. You don't think there's any sort of cognitive similarities between them? You think they're, roughly, if you took their brain and transplanted it into somebody in Sweden, if you compare those two brains, you think they'd be exactly the same. Basically, it's just so I'm saying, like, it's just externally. I just want to get this straight. So you believe that evolution just affects people, or actually, let's answer this really quick. So do you believe evolution only affects animals and then it affects people's externally, or I mean, you believe evolution only affects everything externally? You believe evolution affects animals? Maybe I threw out too many questions there, but
no. Well, I mean, no. I think I've been pretty clear on this. I think that I have been. I think that what you're saying, basically, what you are doing is you are taking something that is pretty sound, demonstrably sound in theory. When you look at animals, we've seen it demonstrated repeatedly that certain kinds of dogs, like German Shepherds, are much more intelligent than, I don't know, what's a dumb kind of dog, a lab or something. We've seen it repeatedly demonstrated that those dogs are easier to train and more intelligent.
Right.
I don't think there are any huge demographics, meaning like what would we define there being as different races? There's, blacks, whites, Asians. When you're looking at demographics that wide, hundreds of millions, if not billions of people per each one, I don't think that there have been anywhere near enough of those kinds of changes, because we have to remember that was a very, very isolated, very intentional breeding that led to a German Shepherd. So what I'm saying is that I think that, sure, in theory, you could breed a bunch of people who were, maybe you could breed a bunch of people who were fairly unintelligent. Maybe you could breed a bunch of people who were, on average, pretty smart. I just don't think that has really happened on demographic-wide levels.
Okay, but let me just get the straight answer from you. So you believe that evolution affects you physically or externally, but you don't believe that it affects you cognitively whatsoever. You don't believe there's any sort of cognitive...
Hold on, Dave. Well, you were finished on? Sorry. It felt like you were cutting them off.
There's a lot of evidence that intelligence is heritable. It can be passed on from parent to parent. That doesn't mean that just because you're smart, your kid will be smart, or just because you're dumb, your kid will be dumb. It's not a guarantee, but there is a correlation between intelligence and heritability.
Right,
but that's so what I'm saying is that because of the way that humans breed and intermingle, and because of the way we marry and reproduce and all of that, and the way that human populations are constantly shifting and it takes so long, I don't think that there's ever really been a case where enough of those heritable differences were able to just stack up on each other to make meaningful differences in intelligence for entire demographics. Maybe you can find very isolated pockets of the world where a group of people is of, modest intelligence, because they're very, and has a high prevalence of, all sorts of different birth defects, because it's a very limited and inbred gene pool. But blacks are not an inbred gene pool. That's a gigantic demographic comprising probably billions of people. What, 1 billion or 2 billion people are black in the world? I don't think that. So I just think it's ludicrous to think that that there's meaningful differences on a level that broad. Any meaningful differences you're going to find are going to be in very, very isolated instances.
Okay, so a couple of things.
Was it just me, or did he?
I don't hear. Honk, are you there?
Did you guys hear me?
No,
you kind of cut out for the last.
Yeah, you cut out.
15 seconds.
So you were saying meaningful. You were saying there's there's not meaningful differences. I mean, that's you basically saying that there is differences, but that they're smaller, they're mitigated, but there are differences.
No, I'm saying that on aggregate, there's basically no difference between races.
Okay, so just because every time I ask you this, you kind of go off on a tangent, and it's just kind of filibustering. So you believe, that evolution affects people physically, externally, but it doesn't have any effect whatsoever on the brain or cognitive function.
I think that in theory it can. I don't think that it has.
So you don't think it has?
No, not really.
So, I mean, if you have different people struggling with different environmental pressures for thousands and thousands of years, why do you think that wouldn't affect them cognitively, even though the dogs have evolved from wolves, in a much shorter time span than humans have left Africa, basically. So humans left Africa, and that's where you got a lot of the split in evolution. You got, the Asians went one way, the Europeans went one way, the Middle Easterners kind of stayed where they were. I mean, that was in a much longer time frame than dogs. And you already acknowledged that dogs have, a different cognitive capabilities. So why do you think that affects dogs? The exact same thing, the exact same trajectory, the exact same environmental stressors, but that has no effect whatsoever on humans, even though it has very observable effects on skin color, skull structure, which affects your brain, that sort of thing.
Skull? Are you really getting into phrenology right now? That skull structure affects your brain?
Just answer the question, then we'll get into phrenology.
Whoa, hold on.
By the way, sweet Firefly poster. I just realized that's a Firefly poster.
Yeah, it's a great one. That's my
I got a bunch of Firefly stuff in here. So,
one of my best friends actually made that one specifically.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so honk. What I'm saying is that I suppose that in theory, if you were constantly for hundreds and hundreds of generations, if you were constantly selecting the dumbest members of a population, making them breed, and then taking their dumbest children, sterilizing the smart ones, or not breeding the smart ones, you could eventually arrive at a group of people that weren't very smart. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what kind of, if God would intervene and prevent that from happening somehow, since he is sovereign. But I suppose that what I'm saying is that even if that is in theory possible, because we've seen that is has happened with dogs, I don't think you can compare the selective ultra fast breeding of dogs and livestock to the completely anarchic, freeform, slow breeding of humans. Does that make sense?
So you do agree that there is a possibility of evolutionary cognitive changes?
Sure. I've said that repeatedly. I just don't.
No, you haven't said that. You haven't. You actually said the opposite. You said you just believe in physical changes. You haven't said.
I said that I believe that the differences between races are phenotypic.
That was the original contention between us.
Guys, calm down. Let's not kind of bark over each other here. Let's.
Well, that's what makes it exciting, That's what gets you viewers.
No, it does not. That's not what gets me viewers. I don't do these debates normally.
Okay.
This here is not what gets me viewers. Trust me. Trust me.
Maybe we'll get you up to 3 viewers.
No, trust me. I get a lot more just with me fucking ranting drunk. This is not getting me viewers. I'm doing this because I find this entertaining, but I don't want you guys barking over each other. Just let's kind of calm down a little bit. I actually want you guys to have I don't want you kind of yelling over each other a little bit. Let's kind of just slow a little bit. All right.
Well, I mean, that's just talking loud. I don't think it's necessarily.
It's fine. It's fine. No, like, it's fine. It's fine. I don't think you guys are trying to be mean or aggressive. I just think you guys were getting a little talking over each other a little bit. Okay, it wasn't. I don't think you guys were trying to be mean or aggressive or anything. It was just a little loud.
Fine.
It was a little loud, back and forth. Okay, so if let's Honk. If you want to start, I'll let you start.
I kind of gonna remember you said because
if you want to give your side first, and then I'll let David give a counterpoint.
Okay, so I will ask you one more time. You now believe that there is that environmental stresses can involve, or environmental pressures can involve cognitive evolutions among humans.
No, I don't think that environmental pressures are sufficient to induce the kind of highly selective breeding that would be necessary to introduce.
Well, let's not quantify it with highly. Let's just say selective breeding. Let's just say changes in general.
Okay, look, let's look at animals. When you look at animals, there are different subspecies of wolf around the country. I don't think that we particularly see any real differences in intelligence, even though their populations can be pretty isolated and experiencing very different. A wolf in the high desert is going to have a different life than a wolf in like the, like rainforest.
Well, there are some pretty significant differences between wolves. I mean, there's size differences. I mean, there's fur length differences. There is. Well, I mean, I don't know. I've never measured the intelligence of a wolf, but you can obviously measure between dogs. I mean, dogs evolved from the wolf in like half the span of times that humans left Africa. So it's kind of a bad example to use.
No, it's not.
I mean, hold on. Sorry, but you've already acknowledged that there's cognitive differences, that environmental stressors can cause cognitive differences, and you're using animals as an example, saying, well, we specifically bred the wiener dog to go into this, to go into chase foxes or whatever. We bred this dog for this, or this horse for this, or whatever. But I mean, environmental pressures apply to humans too. I mean,
that's good. That's good.
Let me ask you.
Let David counter.
Do you think it's safe to say that the differences between a wolf and any number of modern domestic breeds of dogs are far greater than the differences that we see arise in just wolf populations in the wild?
Yeah.
Okay. And what I'm saying is that in theory, we could see, in theory, with given enough time and enough authoritarian breeding practices, we could see possibly wolf to domestic dog level differences arise in humans. But what I'm saying is that because humans have mostly been left to their own devices, and I don't think that, obviously, environmental pressures have not been sufficient to make wolves breed into domestic dogs. That had to happen with incredible human intervention.
But human intervention is an environmental pressure. Human intervention is 100% an environmental pressure. And we apply that to other humans. If you don't think that humans are part of the if you take a dog or a wolf from a child and then you slowly, teach it to, I mean, that's an environmental pressure.
It's not an environmental pressure on the same level as literally picking which dogs you want to breed generation after generation.
Well, humans do that, though. I mean, attractive humans tend to breed with attractive humans, or humans tend to breed with smart humans. So yes, it absolutely does apply. I mean, more successful humans tend to breed with more successful humans. Races tend to breed within their own race. Yeah, it absolutely applies. Absolutely.
And what I'm saying is that those kinds of pressures are nowhere near. Would you at least agree that people picking a mate based on attractiveness or intelligence or compatibility or proximity is nowhere near as intense and specific a pressure as a breeder saying, there's the biggest female, there's the biggest male, let's breed them. Then let's take their puppies.
I wouldn't agree with that at all.
So
I
you
would say
think
that's basically the exact same concept. You're taking the alpha male, you're taking the alpha female. I mean, it's the same concept in reality. The alpha male gets with the alpha female. It's the exact same concept. Somebody's not necessarily forcing you to do it, but it happens. It naturally happens.
Right, but it also naturally doesn't happen a lot of the time. A lot of the time,
same thing with the dog.
Okay, but that's not what gets us breeds, though. That gets us mutts. These very specific breeds were arrived at by very controlled breeding, and only by controlled breeding. Is that safe to say?
Okay, so sorry, say that again.
What I'm saying is that very, very specific different breeds of dogs were only arrived at by controlled breeding. There's a reason that they have papers and they can trace their lineage.
Mutts? You're talking about mutts?
Well, no, I'm saying that just the uncontrolled breeding of dogs leads to mutts, which tend to be genetically superior.
Mutts do? I would love to hear how that works.
This is a very common thing.
Never.
It's a well-known thing that purebred dogs often have a lot more health problems than.
Well, no, I don't think so. I mean, you take the English Bulldog, which is a mix between, I think, like the Mastiff and the original English Bulldog, something like that. I can't remember, but that has all sorts of problems. I mean,
right?
It takes a lot. It's very, very high maintenance.
You just made my point. Like the fact that bulldogs live 7 years and can barely breathe proves my point and it actually goes to show that the idea that the idea of breeds is actually pretty stupid. They're really just one little inbred microcosm of dog genetics. They're not actually different. That's why they can all still breed with each other.
Hold on. You just said this just went off the rails. But you just said that mutts tend to be more healthy, I guess, than
yes,
purebred dogs. And I said, well, what about the bulldog? The bulldog has a lot of health issues, and you said that just proves my point. I don't understand.
The bulldog is not a mutt. The English bulldog would be considered a purebred dog.
No, it's not. It's a mix between, I can't remember exactly. It might be a terrier and a mastiff or something, but it's not a purebred dog. It was made from other dogs. It was made from two different species. You can look this up right now. We can have the moderator Google this right now.
I will Google. Okay, it's the English Bulldog. Okay, what's the debate on it? It's whether it's purebred.
See,
so David's saying it's purebred. I'm saying it's a mix between. I can't remember the different dog. I think it's like, I don't know. I can't remember, but you can look it up. It's not a purebred dog.
At this point, an English bulldog is the result of an English bulldog breeding with an English bulldog. That's how kennel clubs and these organizations that recognize the purebred nature of dogs operate.
But it's not a purebred dog.
I'm looking into it.
Go ahead.
I will let you know as soon as I'm reading into it at this moment. I'll let you guys know as soon as I.
You go back far enough, these all came from wolves. That's basically right. So you're actually kind of proving the point that the idea of races and breeds is stupid. It's really just what people call dog breeds are really just little inbred genetic rabbit trails.
No, they're not inbred. I mean, if you have different wolves that are evolved in different areas, different geographic areas under different environmental stresses, that's not inbred. That is not inbred.
The wolves can range and they can go find other wolves. And there's a reason that without human intervention, the wolf didn't really change. It just stayed a wolf. The wolf would change over time. It absolutely. How do you think a wolf became a wolf? You think just a wolf popped out of nowhere somewhere? It came just like everything else. It evolved from something else due to environmental stresses. Well, I believe that God created wolves. So
it's not like Minecraft where you just make a Minecraft wolf and it's just there. It came from something else. It evolved. It evolved. Everything came from germs, and they became this, and then they became that.
I don't really believe that, though.
Okay, no, that's if you don't believe in evolution, that's fine. But then you just said you did, so.
No, I said that's why I distinguished between the idea of macro and microevolution. The idea of macroevolution would be that
But that's still evolution. Macro and micro are both still evolution. They're still
it's
biological responses to environment. Yeah, they are. Okay.
No.
Guys, calm down. What's happening here?
Well, I'm not mad. I'm just
microevolution would be macroevolution would be the idea that a single cell organism can eventually evolve into the complex life we see today.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, over billions of years or whatever.
Right.
The idea of microevolution would be the idea that yes, you can get different like subspecies, different family trees branching off, but ultimately they're all still kind of the same thing.
Well, that's evolution. Subspecies leads to different species. I mean, that is evolution. That is 100% evolution.
Okay, but I don't believe that ultimately a wolf is just going to be a completely different species. Even now, I'm pretty sure any domestic dog you may have to do it artificially because there's going to be some issues with them actually breeding. But I'm pretty sure you could introduce any kind of domestic dog semen to a female wolf in heat and get some kind of wolf-dog hybrid.
Okay, so what's that? I don't understand what the point is. Like, I don't disagree with that.
I'm saying that
What's that demonstrate?
What I'm saying is that microevolution means you'll get changes in populations, but they will never become something entirely different. That's why I've been.
So you believe in small evolution, but you don't believe in big evolution.
Yes,
you believe small changes can occur over time due to environmental stresses, but you don't believe that those will evidence themselves in longer term changes.
Well, I just don't believe that they'll become like a different species, a different. I don't believe that eventually you'll just have something where it's like, oh, these things can't breed together anymore.
Okay, so I'm not trying to like attack you from the religion angle here, but so you believe that God put monkeys down and they've always been monkeys, and maybe they've changed a little bit from like the baboon to the whatever other gorilla, but they've always been monkeys and they've never changed beyond that point one way or the other.
Yeah, pretty much.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, so you do believe in evolution. You believe it stays within a species. What's a species? I mean, what specifies a species? What some species are pretty, like a cat and a dog. I mean, I guess those are pretty obvious, but you believe that cat has always been a cat, but it's maybe changed colors and grown into a lion in some cases, and in other cases it's grown into a mountain lion. And this is just such a mind-boggling.
I gotta jump in here.
Go ahead.
There is 2 different breeds that a bulldog came from.
Right, because that's how every breed works. The point is that.
Well, no.
Yes, and then
I will say, I'm gonna look from me being completely. This is me being unbiased, and I'm gonna read from what I read from.
Yeah.
And this is me. I'm gonna say, me and David. I know David. We're friends. This is me reading from what I read from. This is just something I like. They are believed to have descended from the Asiatic Mastiff and the Pug. That's 2 different things. I don't know what that means. I don't know. That seems different from what David said to me, but
so here, let me explain.
That's totally fine. And I'm just saying that's what I've read. That's me doing my job as the moderator. I'm trying to be unbiased.
Okay, so
here's David. Go ahead.
I just pulled up an article called "How a Breed Becomes a Breed."
Go ahead, David. I just wanted to do my job.
Right. No, I understand.
Can you read it though? Can you tell me the source of that article?
No. For me, it was something called Pets. It was like a Pets thing for me. It was just like some Pets blog thing. No. I have no good source. David, definitely.
Yeah, David.
David, if you could drop it in the
No, I don't need the link. I'm just wondering the source. If you could just tell me.
Yeah. Okay.
This comes from a website called vetstreet.com. This was just one of the first results that came up. So I'll basically paraphrase before I read this, I'll paraphrase what my understanding of breeds is. And I'm not like a huge dog person, but I have known some people who kind of bred dogs and stuff. So I've heard a little bit.
What was the name of the link again?
I'll post it.
I don't need the link. I was just
no. What was the name of the website?
Vetstreet.com.
Vetstreet? Okay, that's
so
fine. That's
basically the way that breeds work, because you go back far enough and none of these breeds existed, what'll happen is people,
that's true.
A breeder will be selecting dogs, and breeding them together for certain traits. And someone wants a really tiny dog, so they'll work to breed down to a small enough dog. Someone wants a big work dog, so they'll work to breed a big, smart dog that can herd sheep or whatever.
Right.
Once they get to a point and they say, this is a good dog, they get, a pool of them and they'll start breeding. And after a certain amount of time of that one pool breeding, they'll get recognized by some kind of kennel club, like the American Kennel Club or something. And they'll say, okay, for 50 years, you've kept this genetic lineage pure. So now we're going to start recognizing that as a pure breed. And so like the idea that, the bulldog is not a purebred dog because it initially came from other breeds. It is true that it initially, 120, 150, however long ago, however many years ago, came from different breeds. That's true, but it is also considered a purebred dog because now they recognize it as a purebred dog. And the problem is that once they recognize it as a purebred dog, they can't bring in any new blood, any fresh blood to it. And over time, they become inbred, and then you start seeing tons of health problems. So a bulldog 100 years ago was much healthier than a bulldog today because they weren't as inbred. And that's why they'd say that mutts are healthier. If you took an Australian Shepherd and a Border Collie, that's the kind of dog I had growing up, those two mixed together made a very healthy dog. And some pure breeds are going to be healthier than others. Like bulldogs and pugs are known to be like ones that have trouble breathing. And I don't know if pugs have short lifespans, but bulldogs, their life expectancy is like 7 years versus a lot of dogs will live to be 12 or more. So that's basically what this article will say here. Breeds.
If I can interject real quick, just me being moderator, just on the legitimacy of VetStreet as a website. I'm looking into it. It's a they're a veterinarian software company, and they provide software for veterinarian services for around the world. And for all over, all kinds of different veterinarian companies, in the entire world, Europe, America, New Zealand, Australia, Middle East, Africa, everywhere, the entire world. They're pretty legit. It's a very.
No, I don't think they're not legit.
Yeah,
I just wondering what it was.
Yeah, no, I just want to say it's not some it's not a mommy blog.
No, it's fine. I knew that when he said it. That's why I was asking.
No, I just wanted to make sure. I'm doing my job as a moderator.
So I've kind of skimmed this. I'm just going to try to read the most pertinent paragraphs here. So this says breeds born in the USA. In the U.S., the first step in submitting a breed for recognition is to join the AKC's Foundation Stock Service, a record-keeping program for purebred breeders that aims to help support pedigree claims down the line. This requires filling out a questionnaire documenting the history of the breed and laying out standards for that breed that conform to specific guidelines. Among other things, rare breeds from the combination of two AKC-recognized breeds are not considered. Often, these breeds are imported from other countries and must have proof of an acceptable registry. The next step in having a breed recognized is to have it admitted into that last category. The AKC recommends various strategies for shepherding a breed into contention. You can form a national club, which can qualify once it includes roughly 100 active households, or a rescue or health committee that puts out a quarterly newsletter and maybe even its own shows. You should encourage fellow lovers of the breed to record their dogs with the FSS, as there must be 150 to 200 dogs registered with complete 3-generation pedigrees to be approved. Dogs generally remain in the miscellaneous category for 1 to 3 years. Okay, this isn't really pertinent anymore. So it's basically what it's saying. It's basically a bureaucratic process to get something recognized as a breed. Let me Google something else real quick. Mutts are healthier than purebreds.
If while you're Googling, David, if you
why don't you Google purebreds are healthier than mutts?
Sure, I'll Google that.
I was going to say, David, if you're Googling something, is it okay if Honk, if you have like something to say while he's doing that?
Absolutely.
Okay, if you have something to like kind of interject while he's doing that, while he's researching.
I'm not really. I mean, it's an interesting topic about dogs, but I'm not really sure how that's even remotely related to the conversation. I mean, I
kind of feel like you brought it up, though, didn't you? Like in general, you kind of brought up the dog thing, though, didn't you?
Yeah, I said bulldogs were a mix between two different dogs, and they are.
I mean, you brought up.
I don't understand.
In general, dogs, though, didn't you? Into the race topic.
I honestly don't even remember, but I mean,
I thought you brought up dogs as like kind of like a parallel.
Sure, maybe I did, but it just helps illustrate my argument. It doesn't at all hurt me at all. I mean, I don't know.
This is me just kind of. I'm not trying to like do.
Yeah, you can say you're trying to clarify, and that's fine. But
this is just me clarifying. I'm not trying to do a gotcha here. This is me clarifying. I'm just saying, like, I'm trying to give you a moment here. Like, this is all I was trying to do.
What?
Just to clarify, like for you to be like,
clarify what?
No, I don't know, but that's what I was trying to give you because I thought that was what you were doing.
I don't really have anything to clarify on the dog.
Because I thought you brought it up to begin with. I thought you would have a moment to clarify.
I mean, what else do I need to talk about?
I have no idea, to be honest.
So let me just read something real quick, and then we can move on because this isn't that pertinent. But
that's fine.
I googled per Honk's suggestion. I googled purebreds are healthier than mutts, and basically the first result is also from this Vet Street website, and it's titled "The Great Debate: Are Mutts Healthier Than Purebreds?" This is basically just a blog post. It is from a Dr. Patty Coley, VMD. So this is from a vet named Dr. Coley. And this says, there's an unspoken assumption amid the mutt-loving set that mixed breeds are inherently healthier than purebreds. Among breeders, however, the reverse is often claimed. After all that genetic disease and temperament testing, they argue, there's no way a mix from the pound can best a dog with meticulous breeding. So what's the truth? Given that the mutt versus purebred thing hasn't been rigorously studied yet, there's no way I can offer you anything definitive. Nonetheless, most veterinarians will confess to harboring an opinion on the subject based on our professional experiences and scientific education. To the annoyance of most purebred breeders, most of us tend to side with the mixes. And no, we don't consider hybrids, like Labradoodles, exempt from the purebred designation. Mutts mostly win out for their sheer hardiness, thriftiness, and longevity due to their lower incidence of genetic disease. Since they are likely to have a lower risk for receiving a high dose of specific purebred genetic material that can lead to inherited disease, I believe they're healthier than purebreds in this particular sense. As a result, many mutts have a lower rate of hip dysplasia, certain knee diseases, most spinal diseases, many heart diseases, plenty of cancers, and a whole lot of skin, blood, brain, liver, and kidney diseases, among others. Statistically speaking, mixes win out, but genetics are only half the battle. Here are some other key factors that come into play in the mutt versus purebred discussion. And then it goes on to talk about socialization and puppy mills, infectious disease, like other stuff that's not really pertinent. But I thought that was interesting. And
David, could you humor me real quick?
Sure.
You Googled something. Could you Google the exact opposite, like Honk asked you to?
I did. I Googled what Honk said.
You Googled what I said.
Oh, you did. Okay.
I Googled.
That's what I want. Yeah.
So,
I was like, I wanted to see. Yeah, I wanted to see like one way and then what the other would say. Yeah. No, I was very curious about that.
My exact wording was purebreds are healthier than mutts.
Okay. So that's what you wanted to see. Okay.
Okay.
So Honk, what's your response?
So my response is, it's getting pretty late here. Can we have maybe a closing statement or something, kind of wrap this thing up? You guys want to have another debate? I'm 100% fine. We could.
Dude, that would be great for me. I would actually say, David, if I would say if we do this again, if you want to do this on your channel, I'd be happy to moderate again for you. Like,
Sure. No.
because it'd probably be more appropriate to do it on your channel again. But if you want to have me come and moderate for you, I'd be happy to do it. Um, but yeah, it's fucking like it's 6:30 here. Like, I'm gonna have to get up. I gotta make my
3:30
kids
here.
breakfast. I gotta make my kids breakfast soon. They're gonna be up and trying to like eat. Honk, I will say I tried to change the our thing already. I changed it to theological slash scientific.
It's different.
Race. I changed it to theological slash scientific race debate. I don't know if it's taken yet. I don't know if you guys can see it yet. Okay, good. I'm gonna make sure all that stuff is updated. I'm gonna see if I can cut this stuff down. David, of course, feel free to put this stuff up on yours. Honk, of course, like, dude, thank you so much for actually making it here. I really do appreciate that.
No, thank you.
And for having for like actually showing up. Like, I appreciate that. Having a debate. If you guys want, do you guys want to have a closing statement?
Sure. Yeah.
I'm fine with it either way. Yeah.
Okay. Well, here what I'll if you guys don't mind, if you guys don't mind, since Honk was good enough to actually show up, I will offer him the opportunity to have the final word, and I'll give David the first opportunity to speak, and then Honk can have the final word. Is that good with you guys?
Yep.
Okay, David, go ahead.
So basically, my closing statement would just be that to all of you listening out there, if you get seduced by the ideas that sound very scientific and reasonable, a lot of the things that Honk is saying sound fairly sound in theory. You think, oh, well, yeah, we can see these huge differences in dog breeds, so shouldn't we see the same thing in people? Or, oh, yeah, there are studies that have tested a bunch of black people and a bunch of Aborigines and a bunch of white people and a bunch of Asians, and they've shown different IQs. I would just caution you to take those completely uncritically. I would say you should, when it comes to like the way that people change over time through breeding, look into just what it took to get dogs to have that big of a difference. And then ask yourself if that really could have arisen realistically in people, those massive differences. And when it comes to the IQ stuff, remember that IQ, you can't just like hook up a little probe to your brain and it says, oh, here's your IQ. It's a test. People, because of different social factors, different societal factors, can have different test taking abilities, can have different levels of education, different levels of knowledge, and that will affect the outcomes of their IQ score. And it shouldn't surprise anyone that someone coming from an Aboriginal background with little formal education would not score as highly as a white Australian with a lot of formal education would on an IQ test. And do not jump to the conclusion that that means that people of Aboriginal descent have inherently across the board slower processor speeds, as it were, than white people do. People can make statistics sound like anything they want, so just look into them and look into the a lot of the stuff that's come out about race and IQ. There's tons of material out there kind of debunking it, or at least giving you reasons to be sort of skeptical of the findings.
Is that good?
Yeah, that's good.
I was going to try to wrap you up a little bit there. Okay, Honk, go ahead.
Okay, so here's my closing statement. So initially, this whole thing kind of started over a dispute over differences between races. David said there was no differences. I said there was differences. I do believe that if you watch the video or wherever you watch this, that David will acknowledge there are differences, not just physical differences, but cognitive differences, even though he kind of minimizes the impact those differences have. But you can watch and be your own judge. Yeah, I do agree that IQ tests are not perfect. They're maybe the best thing we have. They're not perfect. And yes, I do agree that kind of the environment you've grown up in may have an effect, your nutrition, your diet, whatever. But I still, it's still very observable. You can, determine IQs. You can observe IQs among different, very distinct groups like sub-Saharan Africans, East Asians, Europeans, etc. I mean, there's still going to be a mean. There's going to be an average. He talked about Aborigines and IQ. Aborigines, this is a scientific study, but Aborigines have a different admixture of, I think it's Denisovian or Denisovian. They have a different admixture of Neanderthal. Europeans have that, a Neanderthal admixture, and I think Africans are also the same. So, I mean, there is different admixtures, among the proto-humans. I mean, this is science. And I do agree with what David said about think critically. I mean, anything you see in the media, anything you see in the news, anything you hear in this conversation, please research it yourself. Don't just research the media. Don't research. I mean, actually look into the science. Look into the sources. Very important. Look into the sources.
Good.
And
Agreed.
Stuff yourself. So that's it.
That's good to close on. I gotta say, mad respect to you, Honk, for showing up. I would hope all three of us will keep in touch. I would love to do this again sometime. I'm gonna close it here real quick. If you guys wanna, the three of us hang on real quick, I'm gonna close it just right now. Goodbye, guys. Goodbye, whoever's watching.